So in attendance is myself, Bob Crowther, see Tom Earl, Jackie Bedos, Peter Van Loon, Rhea Capriola. Hello, Sherm. How are you? It's been
I'm good.
Mike Glidden and Charmaine Seavey. Tom Fitzgerald is on, and Brooke is on. Brooke Freeman, Bill Rice, and Sarah Nielsen. So just so my understanding, we when we see the name, are they just in on audio alone?
Yeah, I don't. My camera's not hooked up, Bob.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So call to order. We have a number of topics to discuss, most around business recovery. The first item on our agenda is temporary outdoor dining for restaurants. Is who's going to cover that topic? Is that Sarah? Do you have anything to say on that?
Just that we, again, most of the restaurants that wanted to do temporary outdoor dining have already applied and been approved very quickly through our 5-person committee. Just get in a straggler, which is Farley Mac's. Farley Mac's is opening where Tyocha was in the North Village. So we did just get their application yesterday, and the committee is reviewing it now. So the temporary outdoor dining process has been fantastic. If you go over and talk to people like Pam Patos at Popover, her application was processed within 24 hours. She could not be happier with the town, with the response between myself, Mike Glidden, Mike Glidden, Kevin Kowalski, who will be replaced by Patrick very shortly, but Kevin Kowalski, Henry Miga, and of course, Jennifer and Jason Brown from the Farmington Valley Health District. So we've done it very quickly. Everybody seems very happy. Everybody that has applied has been approved.
Great. That is great news. Thank you. And thank you for all your efforts, Mike. Thank you for all your efforts to streamline that process and make sure these folks get up and running because their business is critical.
I think we were pretty successful at this too. I think maybe there was one application that took more than 48 hours. For the most part, the applications were processed, received, and issued within 48 hours.
Terrific.
So
that's great news. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Second item, the oral report from Main Street. So Sarah, you're still up?
So I just, today's going to be very quick. I will tell you that we seem to be in a bit of a lull, which is actually very good so far. And what we're doing right now on Main Street is we're trying to get our house back in order because so much time was spent helping the business community. So we're back to, getting our stuff together. We've been evaluating what fundraisers we can do, especially based on events like social distancing. I'm sad to say that what was slated to be our 12th annual Taste in Simsbury, the board did make a decision to cancel it for the first time in 12 years, just because we wanted to make sure that, we stress safety above anything. And having 500 people in a ballroom with all of our restaurateurs just wasn't feasible this year. Right. So we're looking at other events and other fundraisers we can do. And at the same time, we're really trying to prepare for what we do believe will be a round 2. So we are looking ahead already. We are in partnership with the Farmington Valley Visiting Nurses Association. We're setting up flu clinics with the business community already because the fear is that we'll have potentially two respiratory diseases this fall, which is the flu and COVID. So we're really trying to get ahead of that. We're trying to stock up on PPE. We're still distributing PPE to the business community as we get it in. And we're trying to look at what other needs we'll be able to anticipate should we have to go back to more restrictive business practices and what their needs might be. So that's really what we've been doing. On another note, I'll mention that Morgan and I got together. We had a fantastic in-person but socially distanced meeting. And I think it was really great because I was able to, really explain to her that although we have similar missions that we are very different business organizations. It wouldn't make sense if we were both doing the same thing to have two of us. And so she really took that very quickly. She picked up the concept very quickly. And we're already looking at things that we can do together where it makes sense, where it's just Simsbury businesses. And so it was great. And then Morgan Sherman and I are going to be having a meeting probably, I'm going to say maybe early August.
That's terrific. Thanks for reaching out to Morgan. I think it's the two of you getting together is extremely important to our town. I agree with your assessment. You have two different missions, but we complement each other quite a bit. And to the extent we've got both of you, the town's better served. And so to the extent you're working together is wonderful. And then when you loop in Sherman in the process, I just think it makes it a really, really strong partnership with the three of you. So thank you for doing that. Hold your thought on PPE for a minute. When Tom and I talked to you about some of our feedback we've gotten from some of the schools in particular, we may want to reach out to you for some help with that. But before we do that, Maria, do you have anything from Morgan? I know she was going to be out today, not able to attend the meeting. She mentioned
That's right. She's on vacation, and I don't have an update for her for today.
Okay. There's some other things we'll talk about later. So Sherm, you're up, and the business resource librarian.
Yeah, the reach outs to me as far as COVID relief for both unemployment and business support has continued to trickle down. I was expecting maybe I'd be getting some more calls about if Congress was going to act again before the end of the month. I haven't had a lot of folks reach out. I've been monitoring that pretty close. I sure hope they're going to do something because a lot of the relief is done at the end of this month. So watching that very closely. The library, we continue to push hard to try and get the recarpeting, basically get all the work that we have kind of stepped on the gas on to take advantage of while we're closed for the pandemic. Don't have a sure opening date again for the library. Our curbside service remains very, very popular. We're filling 40 plus orders a day for checkouts. We do have a computer printer scanner available by appointment that we have in basically we have it set up down in the Friends program room right by the exit doors there. So if folks are in a pinch and need to use it, they're able to make an appointment through me and have access to that. We are limiting it to, a necessary task. You're not going to come in and play Candy Crush on it all day or something like that. So we'll see what's going to happen there. We did go ahead and acquire some time limit management software for our public computers for when we reopen. Our issue there is to maintain our social distancing. We've had to close the computer lab. We're only going to have 8 of our computers available through the day for people to use. So when we reopen and those are available, we're going to be limiting people to an hour a day. And then the other nice thing, the software package is allows us to print a use ticket. So they'll have to come up to the reference desk, get the ticket, they log in with the code that's on the ticket, and then they have the use of the computer for an hour. And we will look at that policy once we get open. Hopefully maybe we might be able to expand the time window a little bit more. We'll have to see. The other thing, if we get really slammed for folks coming to use those computers, we may have to look at actually scheduling windows to use too, but we'll have to see how that goes once we get open again.
I'm just curious, are you in any conversations with with Matt Curtis and the school, given their reopening plans? And
not that I'm aware of. That's one thing we are concerned about, is if the schools remain closed and we are open, we will get slammed. So that is a little bit of a concern there, but I'm not aware there's been any communication there yet. I wasn't able to attend the school board meeting last night, and I haven't had a chance to see if they had resolved anything on what their plans are going to be if the virus continues to burn.
My understanding is they're planning on open as usual for the short term, if you will, and hopefully keep things under control. So, but we'll see. They're doing a lot of work. That's for sure. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. So next is the outreach to the stakeholders. And this is part of the coordination, if you will, with the town's effort to sync up with the Connecticut long-term recovery plans. The work that the Chamber's done, the work that Main Street's done, really taking great care of our businesses, and with Mike and Sarah and Morgan doing a lot of work there. The area that we wanted to focus on were, if you will, the outliers. And Tom, Earl, and I have reached out to a number of different groups, the nonprofit organizations, which include, I've had conversations both with Food Share and Gifts of Love. And I forgot to include the Simsbury Department of Social Services on the notes. So I did have a very good conversation with Kristen Formanak on that, and I'll cover that piece real quick. Tom had a good conversation with most of the private schools, Ethel Walker, Westminster, and the Master School, and he'll comment on that. And while we've reached out to the churches, I've only had one conversation. That's with the First Church of Christ. It seems like obviously July is a very popular vacation month for most of the people running our churches. So we've requested meetings, and I'm sure we'll have more to report on at our next meeting. But we'll start with our nonprofits. In town and within Simsbury Department of Social Services, they are, I mean, in general, the feedback from all three of them is they're holding their own in very challenging circumstances. Even before the virus hit, there was a great need for their services, both from a food, clothing, and shelter perspective. And obviously, when the virus hit, it's put tremendous pressure on their resources. So the need for their services have increased dramatically. Yet through the generous donations of everyone in the community, both in food and in money and in other goods and services, they've been able to continue to meet the increased demands from the community. So, for example, the Department of Social Services usually serves around 80 households every 4 weeks, with a food pantry. Now they're serving 120 to 140 households every 3 weeks. And their resources are getting a little constrained. They've been able to survive, again, just with donations from the town, but they're also looking for more donations if possible. So attached in your minutes, I attached a flyer that Kristen has distributed. And so to the extent that you can take a look at that and distribute it to the businesses in town and friends and neighbors, there's the need there for the Simsbury Food Pantry. Then donations are needed, both from food perspective as well as money, because they also pass out gift cards. And they've been passing out roughly $1,400 worth every month. And so I was actually on a call this afternoon with the folks from the Food Share organization that support Avon, Simsbury, Granby, and with others. Everybody's really working hard and doing a terrific job, but we all know what we're doing from a food perspective is not sustainable. We can't keep asking or expect that we're going to continue to get all these wonderful donations from individuals. So folks are looking for more creative ways of doing things. But in the meantime, the response from the community has been terrific, and we've been able to meet the demands of folks. Food Share does provide a mobile food share van service that's sponsored by First Church. They come every 2 weeks to not only Simsbury, but Avon, Granby, and in the Farmington Valley in general. Prior to the virus, they were serving roughly 100 people every 2 weeks. After the virus hit, that number dipped. We think it was because the seniors didn't want to come out, and it probably dipped around 80, but now they're back up to serving roughly 100 people every 2 weeks coming through town. The interesting piece of that, if you add that to the other service that Food Share is providing over at Rensselaer Field, they're averaging well over 1,400 cars a day over Rensselaer Field, which is amazing. And it's roughly $15,000 a week just to support what they're doing. So again, it's wonderful, but they're concerned about the sustainability of all that. So always looking for more donations, and anything we could do would be terrific. At the Gifts of Love, they provide 250 backpacks for food insecure individuals in our school system. And that work has continued throughout, even when they went to distance learning. And they continue that through the summer. So they're always looking for donations there as well. Some of the comments, feedback we'll be getting is around, senior isolation and loneliness that our senior citizens are experiencing by being indoors and not able to socialize. The senior center at the Edino Hall has been shut down during this entire time. They're looking to do what they can to help support the seniors, but everybody's in agreement they're not going to do anything unless they can do it safely. They're not going to open up the center unless they can do so safely. So one other comment from Gifts of Love is the Simsbury Farm is open. They're not holding classroom educational programs there, but they are still providing fresh produce for the number of agencies here in the greater Farmington Valley. So feedback from the First Church is, they're holding their own. They were able to adjust online services and provide Sunday services online. But again, members are anxious to reopen, but they're not going to do so unless they can do so safely. The similar issues with the seniors, obviously the church is a big part of their socialization process. And they've been trying to reach out. One thing that's been very positive is that they're seeing a lot of volunteers step forward to help out. People within the church going to Fitzgerald's, buying groceries for the seniors, making sure that seniors within the congregation have been serviced properly. It's just a real, when you interview these people and you hear their stories, it's a wonderful testament to the town of Simsbury and the quality of the people who live here in Simsbury, about everybody come together, help each other, support each other, do what they needed to do to help make sure everybody is surviving in these difficult and challenging times. So it's a very, very positive message and speaks very well of our community itself. Financially, is to the extent that the pledges continue to come in, they should be okay. They have applied for and received some government loans. And I believe what I've read in the paper, in the Hartford Current, is, a lot of the nonprofits have reached out and are receiving loans as well. So everybody seems to be doing okay. So that was the one feedback from the one church we talked to. I expect to talk to more between now and our next meeting. I'll have more to report back on. But Tom, I'm going to let you talk about your conversations with our private schools in town.
Yep. The phone's ringing in the background here.
Nope.
Bob asked me to contact actually 4 churches in the 3 private schools in town. I was able to get in touch with 2 of the churches, although I called and emailed all of them. 2 of them returned my call, United Methodist Church and St. Mary's. And they were very much appreciated the town reaching out to them. That was their very first comment, that they were very pleased that someone from this committee in the town was reaching out to them and asking them what how they reacted to the COVID crisis and what they would need, what kind of help they would need. The United Methodist Church plans, they start up and having worship services on Zoom, and they plan to do that right through October. Financial impact, they had received some federal money, PPE loans. They have lower bills because they're not running their church, heating bills and cooling bills. So they thought they were okay. They thought they were doing okay, and they financially, they thought they were solid. St. Mary's, basically the same thing with St. Mary's. They received some federal help. They're doing the same thing on Zoom, and they hope to get back to in-house services in the fall. The private schools talked to Ray Logan, the headmaster at the Master School. They have 225 day students over there. They shut down in March. They received federal help with PPE loan. They plan to be fully on campus in the fall by the second week of August. One area they thought that maybe the town could help them is some PPE equipment, some bulk ordering of maybe cleaning material or face coverings. They're certainly willing to pay it, but they thought maybe if the town had a way of getting it for a lower cost and an easier way of procuring it, they thought that would be helpful. The Ethel Walker School, they're a boarding and day school. Again, she was the headmaster over there, was very pleased with the town contacting them. They received some financial support through the PPE program. They plan to open up in the fall with a lot of different protocols, smaller classes. They actually purchased some large outdoor tents to run some classes because their classes are smaller and they don't have enough indoor classrooms. What they thought the town, they thought the town may be able to help them again in getting cleaning supplies and face coverings, but also they plan to do extensive testing, and they wondered if the town had any way to help them in that area. Then Westminster School, they have 400 students, 3/4 boarding students, a third day students. They plan on opening in the fall. Again, they were very pleased. The town reached out to them. They couldn't see any specific way the town could help them. They plan to do extensive testing and have signed a contract with a firm outside of Connecticut that will guarantee them rapid testing. They've worked with their faculty and arranged for the faculty to be tested. Kids coming back, they have kids from all over the United States and the world, and some of those kids won't be able to return to school. They've reconfigured all their classrooms, so the largest class size would be 6 students. So they'll have morning classes, evening classes, and all the sports in their league they play in have been canceled for the fall. But again, I think the overall message or positive thing was that all the churches I contacted and the private schools, again, were very much appreciated someone reaching out to them from the town. So, Bob, I think your idea was well received.
Good. Very good. So, as it relates to getting access to PPE, Sarah, I know you've, in some of your emails, indicated that you may have access to some of that, and I don't know how we tap into that or if we can tap into that. But just want to at least bring it to your attention and see if you had any thoughts or ideas.
My first thought is that when it comes to the schools, that it might be better coordinated through Matt Curtis, because again, Simsbury Public Schools will have to follow the protocol that's still being set forth by the state, and the unions are still going back and forth to try to settle details such as access to PPE, rapid testing, all of the things that the private schools are concerned about. The public schools are also concerned about and are actually working on this as well. And so whatever comes down from the state mandates, it might be easier because we try to, we're doing it on part of the businesses and we can help, but it might be easier to start with a conversation with Matt Curtis and the superintendent of the public schools to see what they're going to be doing, what those recommendations are, because my guess is he's going to be bulk ordering for all the public schools, and it might be more appropriate and also easier to streamline by starting there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does. And Maria, I know you meet with Matt on a regular basis.
Yeah, I do. So I will definitely check in with him to see if there might be a way to coordinate efforts there. Pre-pandemic, Matt and the three heads of school and I were getting together about 3 times a year just to check in and talk about, what's going on, but also just possible opportunities and partnering and sharing resources and things of that nature. So yeah, I'll definitely check in with him about that. And then if we can reach back out to Ray and Mira and Bill, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Tom, anything else?
Almost set. Thanks.
Okay. So next on our agenda is 2019-2020 work plan updates. Peter, do you have any updates on, with you and Ron, work with the open space, the open office workspace?
Actually, a little bit of progress. And I actually need, I think, direction from the commission. Sarah put me in touch with one landlord in town that was thinking about doing it independently. I found another, and as you can expect, there's a lot of, gee, what does this all mean? And how do we do it? And as I've been researching it, I'm eager to share with the different landlords, but I'm thinking I would hate to work with a couple that show up and show interest and then only to have down the road others say, well, why didn't you talk to me? Again, don't know where this is going, except that there's a nascent interest, and what I would recommend to the commission is to say, hey, we're interested in working with local landlords about trying to develop co-working space. If interested, contact me or Bob, or whatever. But my point is that I want to keep working with these two, dare I say, self-identified landlords, and I don't want to go public with who they are at this juncture because, again, my concern is that we might be perceived as playing favorites if we don't open this up. And maybe I'm being too paranoid. But as I go forward, I'm thinking that, gee, as we do this, there's a potential that they could come to the commission and other commissions in the town with, hey, how about a tax, a fee waiver and tax abatement for whatever we do? So to sum up, there's some interest. I'm concerned that maybe doing it with the best of intentions, but with a small group isn't enough. And that I would recommend, absent any input from the team and from the folks that know more than I do about this, that we go public with this so that we can get people to identify and we can get a larger group together so we could avoid something in the future of people saying, hey, you folks left me out. I've been in situations like this before, and I've learned that good faith efforts, even when they're short, after the fact, are often painted as malevolent, and I don't want to do that here. So am I being too paranoid, or am I tracking, and should we do something like I suggest?
Peter, so a couple things. I've had other landlords approach me as well about some co-working space, and we've kind of started a discussion that says that, maybe through EDC or whatever, we would do like, you get a Simsbury coworking.com. Okay. And because these are landlords that have maybe only one or two 1 or 2 offices. So it's too small for them to go out and want to promote that 1 or 2 offices on their own. But when you get 4 or 5 landlords that we have already, each who has 1 or 2 spaces, that maybe we could start something there. We're, currently looking into things like, and maybe Sherm can help us with, scheduling software, and we're exploring that. But then it really allows for, if somebody's interested, they can see what other landlords are doing in Simsbury, and they can come on at any time.
Yeah, I agree. This is something that is less of a dedicated central facility that is turned over to this, and more a relationship opportunity with landlords as they have open space, and we identify people that are interested in getting out of their house and going central, that we find a way to allow, not to catalyze that to happen. But the idea is that it's not going to be a situation where landlord X, who has 5,000 square feet, I'm making up numbers, is saying, okay, we're going to turn it into a co-working space. I think this is more an opportunistic opportunity. And I'm going back to a discussion that I had with Sherm and saying, hey, how do we figure out who really is interested in this? And I perceive if we go public with this, and if we can start to generate a bunch of landlords who are interested, if they have open space trying to do some of this, we could, as part of that, go out to the town and say, hey, who would be interested? But I don't want to go off on that without the commission's knowledge and, even better, blessing, because I don't want to be perceived. I don't think we want to be perceived a year from now. Let's say we're very successful, as I'd hope to be, with getting 10 people to work in a co-working space with 2 landlords, to have 5 other landlords come up and say, well, what am I, chopped liver? So I agree with you, Sarah. I think you're saying, you and I are saying the same thing, that this is not an amorphous thing, but a evolving and continually evolving opportunity, as landlords have space here, space there. But if we can act as, dare I say, not a choke point, that Freudian slip there, a manager, and I say that and I go, okay, well, now the legal people come up and all this, but to take it back to basics is, I'm asking, I think we should go public where they're looking at this, and I think that we should let it be known to all the landlords in town, so that if they're interested, they can contact us. If it's better handled by somebody off the commission, fine, but I'd like to get started on this.
So if I understand your request, the concept is we have multiple buildings throughout Simsbury. Each may have some space on their own. The idea is to aggregate all of the space, make people aware of what potentially exists out there, but you need one central point of contact, if you will, that sees it all and understands what's available, help. And so if someone from the outside were to come in and say, hey, what space is available, we could show them an inventory of different co-working spaces in multiple buildings across the town, and then put them in contact with the right person if he's excited about looking at building A or building B, right?
I could see that as probably a very good probability of happening. The idea is that landlord X may come in and say, hey, I have this X space. I'd love to give it to somebody that wants to co-work, but I only want to open it up for the next 4 months. And that's okay. Yeah. Or they may say, hey, well, I got these 3 spaces, and we start looking at the 3 spaces, and then, gee, we got somebody who's interested in space X. And I go back we go back to the landlord, somehow connect with the landlord and say, oh, I just rented space X. I don't have that anymore. In other words, it's kind of like dare I say, an Airbnb of co-working spaces.
Right.
Oh God, Mike Glidden's going to kill you for saying that. I think
Wow.
there's two things, right, Mike? So there's two issues. I think issue number one is that, the co-working spaces that we're looking at are in Simsbury are different than what you're talking about, for example, in Hartford. We're looking at a variety of landlords with small 1 or 2 offices at various times that would like to rent them out for co-working. I think that if we did all of this online, especially, again, looking forward, but even if it wasn't, a pandemic, if you do this online, so, again, SimsburyCoworking.com or something. You get a domain name, and then landlords can post what they want and their contact information, and the town can help, and the EDC would promote that. They promote it to the property owners to say, listen, if you have a space, here's how you can set it up. And we already have identified what kind of software, and we've identified how people can reserve space. And then, you promote it also to the community, because somebody may say, oh, I don't like that space, but, oh, you know what? I'm looking at 10 different spaces instead of 1. And therefore I have 10 chances to possibly, find the space that I like best or find the space that's available. So I think that if we start, if you come up with the platform and how it's going to be scheduled and all these things, some of that will happen naturally. And that way, if people say, a property owner could say, oh, I really want to participate, I didn't know about this, then he or she could put the information in themselves, and the onus is on the property owner. So I would be careful about making it too complicated about we get in touch with again, I think we have a platform that we create and promote that they help fill in information.
Right.
Yeah, I only bring that up, Sarah, and is the fact that talking to the people I've been talking to, they start saying about, gee, if I went to the town, could I get a tax abatement on the desk that I'm going to buy? And of course I say, well, there's a process for that, and we'd have to follow it. But I didn't want to be I don't think you guys want, as part of the EDC, want me to be in a position of writing checks that the EDC didn't know they had to cash, as far as assisting people with different things that they're doing.
Well, Peter, there's very specific and there's very specific criteria about things that you're talking about. I would not talk about a tax abatement ever. I would instead say, listen, we love what you're doing. The town would be willing to, or is looking to help this way. And this way is helping to promote and manage one place that people can both register and also sign up to participate in co-working. I wouldn't talk about anything like tax abatements, none of that. I would say this is how the town could help and lead the conversation that way, because it does not meet, right, Mike? Mike and I helped redo all that criteria. And when you start talking about things like a tax abatement and desks and whatever, when we talk about tax abatements, we're looking at things like EBAD.
Mm-hmm. Sarah's right. Once again, it's the world of taxes, usually the two of us back out.
Yeah, I would not say that at all. And I would really lead them back to, the town could help market and promote this co-working space, which is made up of all the property owners that want to participate in Simsbury.
Or I would recommend maybe, Peter, if that individual asked the question again to you, is saying, you really should contact Francine, the assessor, to ask about your taxes and whether there are programs available for reductions.
Yeah, you guys are answering. You're answering what I hoped, and I like what Sarah says. It makes that's more considered than I had gotten to so far. But again, I still think it's not worthwhile, needed that we go public with this, and because there might be people that I'd never know have space different places. And I certainly don't want them coming up a year from now saying, you guys are evidently, I've been in this situation before where the perspective is that the folks that were left out for whatever reason are convinced that previously the people in government were playing specific favorites. And we want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in quickly. Peter, I really appreciate that perspective. And, perhaps we're at a point in terms of sort of the research and information gathering phase for your work team. It might be worthwhile to work with SHRM, and maybe we do some sort of a social media blast or an email blast or both. Just sort of alerting people to hey, the EDC has been tasked by the Board of Selectmen with developing a plan for co-working space, and we're research and information gathering. And, if you're a landlord in town and you have an interest in this, please reach out to us, right, and provide the contact information. And that at least makes it a little more open, and I think would be helpful to you and Ron as you're, again, doing your research, doing your information gathering, talking to some interested stakeholders, understanding what their vision is, what their needs are. I think having that really important stakeholder input would help you all in putting together and formulating the plan that you want to bring to the board. And then, perhaps as we get further down the road, as we start to kind of envision what it might look like and take shape, if we need formal partners, we could perhaps do an RFI or something of that nature. I think that probably comes a little further down the road. But I think while you're doing your information gathering and working on your plan, I think having some good conversations with folks who might be interested could be really valuable. And again, maybe a good first step, I don't know, Sherm, if you feel otherwise, might be, again, working to just, starting with social media, starting with email, raising some awareness that they're working on this and seeing if we have any stakeholders come forward.
Yeah, we could definitely put the word out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm all for that because I don't have a crystal clear view about how all this is going to work, but I think that we can definitely muddle forward and answer a lot of questions as we move forward. I just I want to be sure that we don't alienate folks because I've had to clean up alienation in the past, and it's a very character building operation, but that's one part of my character I'll let lie fallow.
Peter, again, I think one of the good things about approaching it this way is that if someone didn't know about it, it doesn't prevent them from participating. So you're not alienating anyone. You're, as we educate and let more people know about whatever we put in place, it just gives more people the opportunity to participate. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. What I do think you need to do, and I don't know if you've done any research, but we also need to come up with, the property owners, they know what they want, but they also want to know how to do it. So maybe getting together with SHRM and saying, this is how other co-working sites handle the spaces. This is how they book them out. This is what they do. This is the software they use. This is, that would be really helpful in how do they, almost like the library, how do they pick what time they're going to be? How do they pay the fee? How do they set up the time? All of those things. I think SHRM would best know how to do that and could help us.
He's actually already schooled me in that several months ago, or started the schooling, and I've taken your masterly advice, started to learn more, and found a lot of resources. But to put it in a practical action point, after all this discussion, I see a couple things. One, Sherma, the idea of collaborating with you and saying, hey, going out to people and saying, we're interested in looking at co-working. If you're interested, please respond. And I mean, I'll put up a website or something, but get the information out. I would then also go to the commercial realtors in town, and I probably could get that from Mike as to who they are and say, hey, we're interested in this. Are you interested? Let me know. And then just taking that interest and trying to package it into, as Sarah says, this is what defining what a co-working space is, what it is not, as we've done on the team here, and then go into the tactical issues that Sarah so aptly brought up is how do we operationalize this with money, time, and resources? And I don't know, but we can figure that stuff out.
Peter, you were going to meet with, after the last call, you were going to meet with the head of the Chamber of Commerce.
Morgan, yes.
Who said she came from West Hartford and she ran a co-working space. Did that happen?
No, I actually stopped it because I wanted this team to make certain that I wasn't going off with best of intentions, but leading us down a path that could bite us. How about that? I think that was 3 metaphors in one sentence. I
think it's really important to gather as much information about how they actually run. And she sounded like she'd be a great resource to get that information, so you would have that when maybe you were approached by landlords, and you could say, well, we know how it works in this place or that place. I think that'd be useful information to have.
No, my only sense there is that I don't think this is as much a linear process of one thing after another as a multi-threaded one, which invariably ends up with a little bit of chaos at the start, but that chaos also acts as a catalyst. So, I'd like to jump into it and push it and report back to the commission about the things that I screw up on and what I do to correct them, and the things that we've identified throughout the town that are going well or adding to what we want to do. But I wanted to make certain that I wasn't overstepping my bounds. And that was why I kind of held off on doing anything like Tom going to Morgan and even going to more landlords. And I'm thinking now, after talking today, it's like, gee, I should get with Sherm, have him, like he did the last time when I met with him, recalibrate me into stuff that actually makes sense and would work, and then go to Sarah and Morgan with those ideas and use the collective knowledge base of Sarah and Morgan, and then probably go public if that's what that small herd of people think. But so that's what I'm unless otherwise directed. In the military, we had a term, UNIDIR, unless otherwise directed. I used to send it in messages all the time, and it forced people to come back and say, hey, don't do that. But they never did. So we went off and did it anyway. Unless otherwise directed, I'm going to go to Sherm and take some of these ideas and put them down on a piece of paper. And it's going to be repeating what he and I've already talked about, but also taking this conversation. And then I'm going to go to Sarah and Morgan, hopefully with Sherm to a degree, and see, hey, does this make sense from where you guys are thinking? And from there, we start to engage both landlords and potential coworkers. Does that make sense? Because unless otherwise directed, that's what I'm going to do.
It does. You may want to just coordinate one meeting with Sarah and Morgan and Sherm just to kind of maybe expedite things a little bit.
Yeah, I'm being smart, Bob, in the fact that the last time I talked to Sherm, he disabused me of a lot of my grand and glorious ideas. And I think I need to be disabused again by somebody that's done this before I go to Sarah and Morgan, and they like think less of me for being an idiot without going through Sherm first.
Okay, that's
I'll get a bucket of cold water ready for you, Chief.
okay. All right. Sounds like we have a plan.
Aye.
Okay. Very good. Moving on. Charmaine or Brooke, any updates on marketing materials?
No, I have not had anything to review really. So
Okay.
Happy to though.
This is my first meeting. Sorry,
hey, Brooke, congratulations.
Hey.
Welcome back.
I'm losing him.
Welcome.
But I have not had anything.
Okay.
I can just give a very, very, very quick update, Bob. So I know we were trying to connect about this late winter, early spring, and then the pandemic hit, which kind of put a monkey wrench into so many of our projects and initiatives. And I was able to check in with our finance director because you may recall through year-end transfers last year, we were able to get the Board of Finance to agree to setting aside $18,000 for us to work on the marketing materials refresh. So that money was in the budget. And our finance director, as she's working on this year-end close, will help us work on requesting to roll that money forward into the new fiscal year. So we'll, again, hopefully, and I would think most likely have those funds available to us to move this project forward. And Sarah had received a proposal. Again, I'll say that I've just, again, been really flat out, and I definitely need to loop back to that. And we'll make sure to circulate that to Charmaine and Brooke as well.
Okay. So
You have a good excuse, Maria. You've been so busy, so there's no worries. I know. I after I emailed you the second time, I figured, I'm leaving it in your court now.
Yeah, it's been a little hectic, but we are really trying to get back to some of our normal sort of operations and projects and things of that nature. So we'll definitely circulate that to the team and hopefully be able to get going on that soon.
great. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. One other item that I wanted to bring everybody's attention to. I had a call yesterday with Eric Wellman and Jackie, where we were brainstorming some additional ideas and work plans for the EDC to work on through the remainder of the year, and came up with 3 good ideas that I want to run by the team. The first one is just a very informal request of everybody on the EDC as they're out shopping in the town of Simsbury. Your favorite hardware store, or restaurant, or dry cleaners or whatever, is just check in with the businesses and ask them, how are you doing? How are you surviving the virus? Any issues or challenges? And just try to get a sense and feel for the business owners of how they're doing and any issues or concerns they may have. And if you hear anything that you feel like we should all be aware of, make a note and either send an email out or at our next meeting, come prepared to talk about it, and maybe if there's some things we can help them with, let's do it. But as you're talking to them, make sure you discuss the fact that you're part of the EDC and you're changing your hat all of a sudden. Now I'm not your customer, but I'm actually representing the town, and we're concerned about how your business is doing. As again, a way to promote the town's involvement with the various businesses, but just get a sense and feel for how everyone's doing and see what kind of feedback you get. So that's a simple request of everybody. Get the opportunity to do so. I've done that informally on my own, more out of curiosity. Every time I go to a takeout, I ask the restaurant owner, how are you guys doing? You guys making it okay? And the feedback's actually been pretty good. So that's just a very informal request, and I think it's something we could all do very easily. The second one is I did send out an email both to Sarah and to Morgan at the chamber, asking them if they had any projects on the back burner that they have not been able to get to because of everything that they've done to drop what they were currently working on and all hands on deck to work on the virus situation. And if there's some things that maybe we can do to help out to get some of those things on the back burner moving along and make some progress on. I did get feedback from Morgan on 2 things. One was the help with the Government Affairs Committee. That's something that we meet once a month on, and she has some ideas on how she might like to kind of refresh that. It's been struggling, but I think she would like some help in getting that back up and running, and maybe with a little bit of a different focus. The other one was Young Professional Group, and the Young Professional Group struggling when it came on, and everything that's happened was put on the back burner. This group has a big networking component, which is obviously difficult right now, but additional benefits to the group should be developed. So those are two projects she thought that we could help out with. Does anybody have an interest in working with Morgan to see what we can do from an EDC perspective to help out in those areas?
I would.
Okay. Tom, I'll forward you the email to her, the email I got from her, and give her a reach out to her and see what we can do to help. Okay.
It's fine.
Great. Thank you very much. Sarah, do you have anything that comes to mind where you can use some help?
Not specifically in that a lot of the stuff that I deal with is confidential, so I can't put it off on anyone. The one thing that I will mention is, again, if you can be thinking of, and if you come across a great idea, send it to me. But we're really looking for how we're going to help, especially given that if we go through another round of restrictions, it is going to hurt so many of the businesses that we've been able to pull through by the skin of their teeth. So, things like advocacy. I know Sherman talked about what's going through Congress. I'm getting regular updates right now, and I will say that Senator Whitcomb's called me last week and said that there is a bill going through Congress, which again, that it's in its early stages, and it means that it could get changed, it could get deleted. But there's talk about the PPP loans, which are the federal loans. A certain, if people borrowed up to a certain threshold, that they might be automatically forgiven. So, advocacy on both the state and federal level, from helping the business community from the EDC, and Maria does a great job on behalf of the town as the town manager, but really continuing to push forward things that will help the businesses. And then also, we're looking at ways to get funding to do some, again, a lot of stuff is now being done online. A lot of our restaurants have gone to Toast Tab and all of these other online services where people can order, which they never did before. So, we're looking for programs, we're looking for funds, we're looking for different ways to help should we have a second round to keep these businesses open. So I'll, just kind of as a blanket statement, ideas and things like that from the EDC, as well as, I'm getting constant feedback from the business and property owners, but that would be helpful.
Okay, very good. And let's hope we don't have a second wave. Okay, so thank you very much for that. The third idea we came up with is, as Mike presented the update to all the development projects going on in Simsbury, and there's quite a bit. And Mike made the comment that things really haven't slowed down as a result of the virus. So we're continuing to move right along with a number of different projects. The Big Y being one, the work that continues at the Silverman Group. There's the self-storage facility that it's under development near Chubb. I think there's another big development project going on around Hoffman Auto behind the former La Trattoria restaurant. So the thought that we had was, would it make sense to assign an EDC member to each of these big projects and kind of shadow that development all the way through to completion? With the idea that they would attend any zoning meetings or planning meetings or design review board meetings associated with that, to be aware of the issues. If they can help, great. We're not expecting much of that, but it's more of the concept of, by shadowing the project through and being aware of everything that's going on and starting to develop a relationship with that business, that when they do go into, full production, if you will, up and running, things are going great, that, you get assigned to that particular organization, and you continue to help them go forward and grow and develop in the town of Simsbury. So that's the kind of the thought, to get this assigned to a project, see it through the end, but more importantly, develop that long-term relationship so that the EDC can continue to foster a relationship with that particular organization, help them out with future issues or challenges that they may have, and and be directly involved from a town perspective all the way throughout. So, Mike, I know I sent you the email because I know this is what you do on a daily basis, and you do a terrific job. And what I struggle with a little bit in my own personal experiences is I don't want to be added onto a project just for the sake of being added on. I want to make sure there's a value add component to it. The value add really is really the idea of developing that long-term relationship. But wanted to get your thoughts and ideas about how feasible something like this would be, and if so, how we might want to think about going forward with it.
Yeah, Bob, just to get back on your first comment, I told the board last month how things haven't slowed down. I'll just give you an example. The month of June, we processed $3.5 million worth of construction permits. So that's the value of the construction. It was 245 permits. My inspectors did 195 inspections throughout the town.
Wow.
And that's not just commercial, because ironically, the month of June, 2.8 million worth of that construction value was residential improvements. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of investment still and interest, because what you've alluded to is some preliminary projects. I think the shadowing would work. It's a great idea. Just I think what we need to do is maybe have an offline conversation first about boundaries.
Yeah.
My only concern is that when these applications are before some of my regulatory bodies, there has to be an understanding of, a role of shadowing versus what's not shadowing. So, right. And we could talk about it offline. I think that maybe that's the best way. And then maybe if it's okay, bring it back to the committee to say, if you're interested, and you're right, I have more projects to add to that list, Bob, but I don't want to, we can talk about it later.
Absolutely.
And that way that, that they could, if someone wants to be assigned to watch the thing, like you said, attend a meeting, et cetera, and then long-term potentially build a relationship.
Yeah. That's the concept. Jackie, any other comments?
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you, Bob. I think you took my idea, pretty well. You explained it pretty well. And just to add agendas, right? You can follow the agenda. You can follow the meetings, especially right now with Zoom. So there's so much that you can do, and you can always check in with Mike and say, Mike, this seems like this is a problem. And then Mike can tell you, well, this is what we typically do. This is how we handle it from the town side. So I think that'd be pretty exciting for any member of EDC to get involved as a shadow for these new projects that we have coming up.
Great. Okay. So Mike, I'll take the next step. I'll reach out to you. Let's find a time to have a conversation, and we'll try to flesh out the concept a little more and present it back to the board at our next meeting.
Sounds like an idea.
Okay.
I'm on board.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to report on?
Going back to projects we were working on before the crisis, we were working on the Simsbury fee waiver and tax abatement program and economic development strategy. And I met with Maria and you and Peter was at one of those meetings. We had 2 meetings. It was in Maria's office. Probably can't remember. She's been at so many meetings lately. But and we fine-tune those documents and put in all the suggestions and they're basically complete to present or give to someone. Maybe it's the Economic Development Commission meeting or someone, or have you sent to Maria. Maria could send them out to the members of the commission. But I think we're as far as we can go right now until we get more input from other people. Whether Maria wants to comment on that, or you were at both meetings, Bob. I think Peter was at one of those meetings.
Yeah, Tom, I was having just a little bit of a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if others were. But if I understood, you were just providing an update on the work that you and Peter had been doing on researching and revising our business incentive policy. And yeah, I think after the last meeting we had, that was really productive. So perhaps at this point it would make sense, because I think you guys probably did another round of edits after our conversation. So perhaps recirculating that to the group for review and comment. And then if we feel like it's in really good shape at that point, eventually we would be presenting the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. But yeah, I mean, again, I think you guys did a really great job, working on the update. So perhaps once you feel that they're ready, we could send it back out to this group for another look.
I'll send them to you, Maria.
Great, perfect.
Latest iteration, which you edited and Bob edited, and then you can decide if it's ready to go out to the group.
Wonderful. I think that'd be terrific. Thank you. And thank you and Peter for your work on that.
Okay, very good. Anything else? So the next item on the agenda is the minutes from June 24th. If people have a chance to review the minutes. Any questions, comments, edits, changes? Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? Peter gave me 2 thumbs up, so I assume that's a motion to approve.
Yes. Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds. Motion to approve. Then everybody say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
They're good.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, minutes approved. Any other questions, comments before we adjourn the meeting? We got done in an hour and 10 minutes. That's very good. All right. So motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.